May 15th Regional Council meeting to order. If we could stand for a pledge allegiance to the flag, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So before we do roll call, we have a couple of letters that have been submitted on behalf of the local councils, and I want to just make sure that I get them all read in so that when we do roll call, they're up to speed. So one of the letters that we received was from Ulster County, putting Rich Parish as, renominating Rich Parish as their delegate, and as an alternate Steve Sawyer. So we received that. It was dated May 10th, 2024. We also received a letter from the Ulster County EMS Council that they're replacing Austin Heller as one of their alternates with Mr. Jeffrey Ashdown as a new alternate. They're also replacing one of their alternates, Cody Carroll, with Ms. Jessica Foster as an alternate. We also have a letter from, make sure I'm opening the right one, from Sullivan County EMS Council that is appointing Peter Goodman as an alternate to replace Sean Lewis, and Susan Sherwood as an alternate to replace Jeffrey Ashdown. I will yield to Ms. Karen and make sure I got them all. That was all three? Okay.
Did you do...
Those are the only three.
No, that's it. Rockland was last time.
Right.
Dutchess County?
Is that new?
It should be new.
Okay. If it's not, we'll make it.
It just came on from the paper, so it has to be new.
Yes, no, it should be new. So we're in possession of a letter from Dutchess County EMS Council. Says that Robert Ridley was selected to represent Dutchess County EMS Council as a delegate, and Robert Matagrano was selected as an alternate. In addition, please remove Mr. David Jensen as a delegate, and if we have any questions, we should reach out to them. All right, so we'll put that one back in. Thank you. So that's all of them that we're in possession of?
We're missing Orange and Putnam.
Okay, so again, to those that are representing Orange and Putnam, if you have any changes, please have your council presidents get us a letter, email as soon as possible, and we'll get that officially changed. All right, not hearing any other changes, we could call out roll call, please. Thank you.
All right. So Dutchess County, Chrissy Amy. Dave Violante. Here. Joan Siebert.
Here.
Anthony Sang. Robert Wrigley.
Here.
Stephen Spelligini.
Here.
William Marshall. Robert Matragrano.
Here.
Did I say that right?
You did.
All right. Orange County, Michael Pig. Rich Haley. Wayne Chang.
Here.
Dave Grass.
Present.
Israel Knobloch.
Yeah.
Frank Cassanite. Michael Wachowski.
Here.
Nancy Pfeiffer.
Here.
Putnam County, Robert Cuomo.
Here.
David Jacobson.
Here.
Steve Wygan is here. Michael Kolsky.
No, he's called Wachowski. I was wondering why somebody...
Okay. We were doing the same thing.
Nicholas Falcone. Marty Miller. Rockland County, Bernice Goretti. Nick Rizicki. Tim Egan. Desiree Leone. Glenn Alvin.
Present.
Allison Spong. Ephraim Tober. DJ Leiter. Sullivan County, Alvy Baca. Alex Rao. Neil Meadow.
Here.
Norma Prentice. Susan Sherwood. Peter Goodman.
Here.
Ulster County, Richard Parrish.
Here.
Kelly Nelson. Karen Pardini.
Here.
Stephen Sawyer. Jeffrey Ashdown. Jessica Foster. We have a quorum.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Just a couple of things to keep in mind. We do have a stenographer here tonight, a Mr. Pat Gregorio. Close enough. He asked that before you speak or before you cast any vote, if you're called upon, just make sure that you're clearly announcing your name and identify yourself so that you can get it on the record. All right? So that should help with getting things done through there. I'm going to, again, alter the agenda for just a few minutes before we go into the approval. We have to apologize at our last council meeting. We voted on the Carmel Volunteer Ambulance Corps' expansion of territory. Unfortunately, there was some legal issues with the way that it was worded that the state took exception to and would not grant the CON expansion. So what we have to do is bring it back in front of the council again tonight. So Glenn and the Transportation Committee can get it read in correctly, and we can revoke our wishes so that we can move that off of the agenda. So I'm going to move the Transportation Committee report up to now. Glenn, if you mind.
Sure.
Thank you.
As Glenn Albert is my name. As Dave said, the Transportation Committee had an error in the use of the terms Mayapack and Mayapack Falls versus the town of Carmel. So I'm going to read the second in motion. The second in motion comes from the Transportation Second in motion comes from the Transportation Committee to come before the council from Carmel Volunteer Ambulance Corps, otherwise known as Carmel VAC, to expand their territory to the town of Carmel. There was a public hearing on January 8th, and the hearing officer's decision was submitted to the council previously. So here is the second in motion. The Transportation Committee met on February 12th, 2024 to discuss the expansion of the Carmel VAC territorial expansions into the town of Carmel. We only received one letter in opposition to the expansion. It should be noted that Putnam County contracts for one ambulance 60 hours a week in a county that is 250 square miles with a population of approximately 100,000. The discussion centered on need for expansion. We determined that Empress Ambulance had a contract with the County of Putnam for an ambulance 60 hours a week from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday for the entire County of Putnam. If the proposed expansion is approved, the second ambulance from Carmel VAC will be strategically positioned in the town of Carmel to provide decreased response times 24/7 to the emergency calls in the expansion territory. In the hearing officer report, the town of Carmel fully supports the proposed expansion. Presently, the county contracted ambulance is covering 36% of the weekly clock hours, 60 hours versus 168 hours. The asset is utilized throughout the county and is sometimes not available to cover the proposed expansion. Information provided to the Transportation Committee indicated the county is unwilling to contract for additional time from the contracted entity. Information from the Putnam County EMS Council had a vote on the support the expansion of Carmel's VAC expansion of territory in either November or December of 2023. A roll call vote was taken. An Empress Ambulance who was a member of the Putnam County Putnam EMS Council voted for the expansion. The Transportation Committee took a roll call vote at our meeting, and we voted unanimously to support the expansion, and a quorum was present, so it is in the form of the second in motion.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you. All right, so before we re-vote on this matter, the first thing that we have to do is identify if anybody has a conflict of interest here. So is there anybody in the area, in the room that wants to do, hang on one second. that wants to declare a conflict of interest. Go ahead, David.
I excuse my name, Dave Jacobson, I excuse myself from the vote, I'm
Okay, thank you, David. Is there anyone else that wants to declare a conflict of interest? Is there anyone in the room that wants to identify someone they believe to have a conflict of interest? Hearing none, we're ready to bring up the vote. Yes, hang on a minute. Karen's first.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So with Rockland County, we just need to determine what alternates are going to vote. We have 2 alternates that can vote, and there's 3 of you here. So that's Allison Spahn, Ephraim Tolbert, and BJ Leiter. There are 2 delegate positions that are absent. So,
Hold on.
You're gonna vote?
I'm not gonna vote.
okay.
Who are you?
I'm from Calvin. I'm from Calvin.
Tim is here.
What's that?
Tim Egan is here.
Okay.
But he wasn't here before, that's why I'm saying that he
Okay.
is here.
Okay.
Mr. President, we
So we're just going to read into the record that Tim Egan from Rockland County is present and will be a delegate that's voting. We agree? Okay. Sorry, just trying to bring some stuff up here. Good. There was a hand in the back, and I don't remember who it was.
It was me.
Mr.
I
Cuomo.
just wanted to announce that Tim Egan was not here.
We have a seconded motion that Tim Egan is on the floor.
Hi, Tim.
You want me to officially call your name? Tell me.
Stephen, are you ready for
I'm
a
ready.
roll call vote?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
Dutchess County, Amy, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm gonna start over now. Dave Violante,
Yes.
Joan Siebert,
Yes.
Robert Ridley,
Yes.
Stephen Scully Beamer,
Yes.
Robert, I'm sorry. Matrograno, sorry.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Orange County, Wayne Chan,
Yes.
David Grass,
I'm going to abstain unless there's a tie.
Israel Nablar,
Yes.
Nancy Pfeiffer,
Yes.
Putnam County, Robert Cuomo,
Yes.
David Jacobson, abstain. Steve Wygan, yes. Rockland County, Nick Wozicki,
Yes.
Tim Egan,
Yes.
Glenn Albin,
Yes.
Allison Spahn, BJ Leiter,
Yes.
Sullivan County, Alex Rao,
Yes.
Neil Meadow,
Yes.
Peter Goodman,
Yes.
Ulster County, Richard Parrish,
Yes.
Kelly Nelson,
Yes.
Karen Pardini.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Okay. Motion carries. Glenn, do you have anything else
I have nothing.
for the report?
Nothing.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to respectfully allow the stenographer to end his day. Thank you.
It's gonna take me a few minutes, so you can.
You're fine.
Okay.
I just let you know that you can start winding down. All right, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate everything that you did. Again, that was a misstep on our part as far as the executive team. The Bureau caught that. The Bureau did make it clear to us that we do not have to resubmit their application. This application we submitted is fine. We will notify them tomorrow morning so that they can start their approval processes for that ceiling expansion. So, again, my apologies to Carmelvac. It was not intentional. It was an unfortunate mistake, and we do apologize for that upfront. So we're going to do that. Looking for an approval of last meeting's minutes.
Motion to approve last minutes meetings.
Glenn Alvin, thank you very much. The next person, need a second?
Second.
Joan Seaver's gonna second. All those in favor? Simple aye is fine.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Peter's gonna abstain, thank you very much. So the approvals are in. We're gonna move over to Mr. Parrish for his vice president's report.
Okay. Represented the council at the Lower Hudson Valley Mutual Aid Coordinating Entity, or the MACE team, and the Hudson Valley Hospital Emergency Preparedness Council meeting, and it happened to be this morning. Representative EMS is a member of a ChemPAC called the Tabletop. What they did is they brought in somebody from Northwell Health and did a presentation on ChemPAC. If you're not aware of it, the ChemPAC is in strategic hospitals. And it is there if you come upon an incident where you need certain drugs. And basically it's a organophosphate type drug that you can request to come to your scene. All right? The scenario that they did, the first thing off the bat was that EMS responded to the scene. Nothing about scene safety or anything. They went in and got themselves contaminated and all. So right away, you can't do that. So what we need to do is people need to reinforce hazmat awareness with their teams. They do when they respond. The scenario was a railroad accident where they spilt a trainload of organophosphate. Right? ChemPACs, like I said, they're out there. And the one I'm familiar with, and I'm sure the other hospitals, like the one at Health Alliance, they have the ChemPAC. There are education programs available to make you aware of what's out there and how to get them. So you should take a look at doing that. And the other thing that came out is we really need to start looking at us doing exercises and testing this stuff and how do we respond to some incidences. Right? And I attended the Regional Trauma Advisory Committee, Dutchess Community College Paramedic Advisory Committee, the Transportation Committee, the Carmel CON, and the Blue Care CON, Protocol Committee, 2 meetings, the Training in Ed, 1 meeting, and as regional faculty, I completed an audit for Northern Dutchess Paramedic Program. HVREMSCO, the Training in Ed Zoom meetings, and on the HVREMSCO committee, the Safety Committee, a Zoom meeting. They're working on developing a hazardous incident response plan based on what happened up in Buffalo the past 2 years, why it took so long to get resources out there, and also, when do we say we're not responding? Is the hazard too high for us to put our people out there? Like in Florida, when they have a hurricane, the winds get to a certain level, hey guys, we're not coming, all right? So that's one of the things we're looking at. And because of, I opened my big mouth, I'm writing a tabletop exercise for them, so at the September meeting, to do something with that. And talked to the director of Bureau of EMS, Ryan Greenberg, on 2 issues. One is, whenever they have these exercises, like today, they requested, and I sent out an email to all the EMS coordinators, that they wanted EMS there. Well, every agency that was there got $5,000 for participating. EMS doesn't get anything. And so Ryan Greenberg passed me over to somebody, so I'm working with somebody there. So hopefully we'll get some funds somehow. And the other one was, I don't know if you're familiar with it, quite a few years ago after Irene, the hurricane, the state came up with a e-fines program. And it's designed that if you have to evacuate a hospital, you put a wristband on somebody, you scan it, and you get a whole database, and it goes into the state so they can track where this patient went. Like, man, that'd be great for an MCI. Well, again, Ryan thought, oh yeah, and he passed me over to somebody else. So now I have 2 tags that I'm looking at. Right? And the EMS Council attended the March and April meetings. So that's what I've done.
Outstanding. Any questions for Rich? You 2 should retire. It sounds like you have nothing to do. Thank you. Appreciate everything you do for us. As far as my report, guys, it's going to be a little shorter. A lot of the meetings and stuff that we do behind the scenes goes on. You don't really worry about it, but we do keep all of the infrastructure running in the background. Anybody that would like to run for president is going to be welcome to do so here in a little while. Have at it. But one of the things that I did want to bring everybody up to speed with is we did have an executive board meeting tonight before the meeting. A couple of things that we were discussing. We were looking specifically at financials. Bill will go over that and where we stand as part of his report when it goes through. The bottom line is we're doing fine, right? Everything's great. We could use more money, but everything's okay. We're holding our own. Another item that we had to discuss, unfortunately, this evening at the executive committee meeting was this last week I received a resignation letter from Mr. Jeffrey Crutcher. Jeffrey has decided that he's going to retire at the end of the month and then move on. So what I would like to do is just publicly take a minute and thank Jeff for everything that he has done for us and for the region, because we won't meet again as a council before he rides off into the sunset on his white horse. So thank you very much, Jeff. So while not easy, we will start the planning process of how we'll move forward as a region, as far as working through the inner sides of that. So we'll kind of, as things develop, we'll bring you guys up to speed with where we're at and where we're going. But we did have a really good conversation, come up with some good ideas of how we can move the council forward. The other piece that I wanted to bring out, this was a deliverable at the state. I don't know if David was going to put this as part of his state reported meeting, but one of the things that came out was some statistical data that came out of the state meetings that we attend from, when were we there? Was that last week? I can't come in. But one of the first things that you're looking at, can everybody see the board? Right? I can make it a little bit bigger if you want.
You can see the board, you just can't see anything on it.
You can see that now? Okay, so I didn't know if you can see the TV. So essentially what Alex Blue did was take some of the statistical data that's been going over the last several years to look for trends and patterns. And one of the things that we are going to miss, specifically here in the Hudson Valley, and for those of us that spend a significant amount of time in Albany at the state meetings, whether it's Bill or David or Rich, Tim, Bob Cuomo, am I missing anybody? There's a bunch of us are there brainstorming. And again, what's kind of nice, and I'll just sit back, all these people take all this time. Nobody's getting paid to be there. So they take 3 days out of their life and go to the state meetings to try and be an event. What's really amazing is we have become this cluster of the Hudson Valley, and people know it. And the good part about it is we've earned a lot of respect up there. Where people will come up and say, hey, what can you do? And, when Ryan comes up to the table when we're having lunch and says, you got a minute? Absolutely. It's kind of nice for that piece to go through, right, to be able to have that. To Rich's point, to be able to have those conversations. But Alex, who unfortunately is going to be leaving us here, actually I think he's gone now, because I think last week was the end of the time. He's going off to medical school to become a doctor. And it sounds like the state's already hiring him back already. But this is the statistical data that when you start looking at 2016 through 2023 of where we were or where we're at when it comes to providers. And this data was at the first of the year. And so it's kind of interesting when you start looking at the numbers of how many certified providers by level we have across the board. And I'm just going to kind of scroll down. I am going to throw this back up onto Boardable so that you can start looking at some of the numbers here. And this next piece, and David or anybody else correct me if I get this wrong, the certified providers by the highest level of care is because at some point EMTs became AEMTs, or AEMTs became paramedics, or EMTs became paramedics, right? So this was the numbers crunching by the highest level of care. Did I get that right? Because that's the way I heard it. So this just kind of gives it to you. And again, I'm going to throw this up on Boardable for you guys to review and look at. What I'm encouraging you to do is to take some of this information back to your local councils and share it with them, right? When you start looking at the number. And again, if I go back up 2 slides and you look at the current number of providers, and there's 84,000. You guys have 84,000 providers in your counties? So the question becomes, where are these people? What are they doing? Now, what we don't know is how many of are represented by, FIDNY. We don't know how many are represented of being certified but not practicing in the field. So those are kind of some of the numbers that are out as far as dealing there. But I thought that this was some really good data when we started looking at total numbers of providers. This slide here specifically talks about how those providers refreshed. Obviously, we went through a lull in 2021 and 22 because we had extensions. But you can see in 23 where the numbers are now creeping back up of how many providers are renewing and how they're renewing. So that always becomes an interesting piece, right? Where are the EMT refreshers? Where are the paramedic refreshers? Well, there's not a lot of them, and you're finding that a lot of corps sponsors are canceling them because predominantly everybody is renewing through the CME program. So this was kind of good data to look at. Nick, have you got something, or?
Yeah, did they ever cross-reference this with EMT numbers or on PCR?
I thought they said they did, and I thought it was about 36 or 37,000 that were actually appearing on PCR.
Correct, and I'm not sure if that's in
And
one of
the
the
rest-
next slides.
It could be, but that would be.
The rest are not, and
Take a large-
a
Right.
pretty large percentage, Dave Dillaloop, a pretty large percentage of those are at 50. I don't remember the number. We talked about this last year.
Yeah, it's a good amount.
It was a good amount. I mean, almost half of that number.
Sure.
are 50.
So again, I'm going to share all of this so that you guys can pull it down off of Boardable and be able to take it back to your local councils. These are provider expiration timelines of, who was responding at what level, when, and what year. Obviously, you'll see the lulls when the extensions were through there. Wasn't a lot of people renewing. In 2022, only 5,000 EMTs renewed. Well, that's because everybody was riding high on those 1-year extensions. So that's kind of an important piece to keep in mind. So those are starting to creep back up. And then the last one was the newly certified providers, which I thought was one of the most interesting pieces of data that came out of there. How many new people are we bringing into the system? It's really nice that we have all of these, people that are already certified, but how many new people are we bringing in? And that really goes back to what we've been talking about time and time again here at the council, and hopefully you're talking about at your local regional councils is, do we have a recruitment problem or do we have a retention problem? Right? And if we're not identifying that, then we're really a disservice to ourselves of identifying how we fix making sure that we have enough people to be able to respond to the calls and do what it is we've got to do. And there's a lot of theories on how we would get that done and go from there. We formed a tag, and I'll talk about it a little later when we get into those tags, to try and do that. That committee took off like wildfire, and then unfortunately, we haven't seen a lot of action out of that committee. So I'm going to really just see if we can get that revitalized and get people back into it so that we can start to work on it. So again, I'll throw this data up onto Boardable. The next thing that I wanted to kind of mention was Boardable. Right? One of the things, first of all, thank you everybody for coming out tonight. This is a phenomenal crowd. Unfortunately, we had no idea this crowd was coming. So again, each and every one of you, except those that just got voted in, have access to Boardable. If you don't have access into it, let us know, and we will work to get it done. The one person who's going to put his hand up in just a few minutes, if we're making eye contact now, is Mr. Mahoney back there, because we're trying to figure out how the county coordinators would get access into the regional councils. So one of the things that was being developed as we spoke up there, and I think it came out of the county coordinators meeting, was they're forming a group on Boardable for there. So I think once that committee is up and running and people are assigned to, I think when we left, there was 2 people in it so far. That's how new it was created. Once they've created the county coordinators Boardable, giving access to another one is easy. Right? So anybody that's in the room that sits on multiple committees, whether it's Tim as part of legislative, or David on education, Rich on education, and then the Hudson Valley, that we have several accesses into different things. Now, Boardable is not the easiest thing to work through, but I will tell you that once you play around with it for a little while, it gets easier to maneuver through the system, But the greatest part about it is dropping data in there and then allowing people to be able to go and see that data. So again, I would encourage everybody in the room, if you don't have access into Boardable, come see one of us and we'll work to get that done for you. And it's not gonna be me because I'm literally gonna pass the buck. But we wanna make sure that you guys are using it equally. When the announcements go out for a meeting, we need to know how many people are coming. And I'm gonna spend a half a second emphasizing that because we have 2 actions that are gonna come before the council that will have to be acted upon before our September meeting. Which means that we're trying to coordinate it so we can call 1 special meeting, but there's a chance that we may have to call 2 special meetings. Because we're constrained in timeframes from when an application is submitted until when we have to take action on it. That means it has to go through the Transportation Committee's meeting or processes, then come back before the council. And each one of these that are coming up, one is a new CON coming out of Rockland County, and the other one is a conversion from a muni CON to a permanent CON in Ulster County. So again, we're held in time constraints. We need to know that people are going to be here. It's not fair to the agencies that do the work, put the time in, submit the applications, not to have a quorum to be able to vote on it in a reasonable time frame. So I'll get off my soapbox. Please use Boardable. All right? And if you can't figure out how to use Boardable, then call Karen and say you're coming to the meeting. She'll yell at me, but at least we'll know people are going to be here for a quorum. Please. Did I have anything else? I think that's everything I had. Any questions for me? Yes, Mr. Goodman.
Pardon my ignorance.
Yes.
Looking at the numbers before.
Which one do you want to go to?
The recertifications and the current certifications.
Okay, hang on.
Well, it's not so much the numbers. It was
okay.
An acronym that got thrown out, and I was not familiar with it. It was FITNY.
FITNY, FDNY. Fire Department of New York.
Wondering where. Okay, that's so. There are quite a few.
They are the
certifications out there.
The anomaly in the state, actually in the country. They're the largest fire department EMS provider in the country, and things that happen down there are a little different. You know, for those of you that spend time working the system, you know that, you know, in our ALS collaborative protocols, every single county in the entire state is on one protocol, except for New York City. They have their own. And you're the biggest entity in the country, you sometimes get to dictate policy.
They do 1.5 million.
They've got the size, got the juice when it comes to getting what they need and what they want. Gotta respect it. All right, not a problem. Any other questions for me? Beautiful. That takes us over to the treasurer's report, please. Mr. Chan.
Okay, since ending 5/15/2024, we wrote 34 checks for $60,000, $139.28. Most of that was for rent, utilities. Transfers, we transferred from program agency to payroll $28,084 on March 28th. Transfers from program agency to council $1,916. That was done because it was deposited into the wrong account, it was a correction. Financials, made 6 deposits for $67,043.13. There were 2 vouchers that were submitted. One was for $68,495.22, and the other voucher was for $8,827.56. Our total money on deposit right now is $201,481.60.
Any questions about the treasurer's report? Need a motion to accept the treasurer's report? Tim Egan, seconded by Alex Rao. Any discussions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Treasurer's report is done. We are up to the regional office staff report. Bill.
Okay. The current contract that we have with the state for the region and for the program agency expires June 30th, 2024, and the new contract is supposed to start July 1st. But at this point in time, we haven't even seen the new contract, so we don't know what it is. And we are told that we'll probably see it sometime in the summer. So we're going to run probably a little bit of time without the contract. And we've done this in the past, and what happens is, if we don't have a contract, we can't get reimbursed for our expenses. So sometimes it really drags out, and it gets a little tight. But hopefully we'll be okay with it, and we'll get it done quickly. As soon as they get it to us, we can do it fast. Ryan also felt that the program agency budget will see some kind of an increase this year. For you that don't know it, it's been since 1998 since we've had an increase. So it's something that we're looking forward to. So he really is on the positive side that we are going to get it, but he doesn't know how much, and he hasn't completely committed to it because it hasn't gone through the process yet. There's also a possibility, or I guess it seemed pretty solid that there's going to be a deliverable and a budget item for recruitment and retention. So we had talked about this earlier in creating our new committee that is going to look at that. It does look like there will be some financial support in there. And it could be, they're talking about possibly being ongoing. But at this point in time, they are talking about getting it in this year. The second thing that the Bureau is talking about is 2 paramedic scholarships for each region. So in an effort to get more paramedics out there because of some of the stuff that's happening at the state level where they might be pulling some of them into state work, they want to replace them. And it was an idea that came out through one of the groups there. And they're looking to give each region $20,000 to support 2 paramedics through school. So again, there'll be rules and regulations.
2,000.
2,000.
20,000. A total of 4,000, right? 2,000 each?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, 2 paramedics for 2,000.
It's not $20,000. And unfortunately, you can't go to paramedic school for $2,000. That's the reality of our program.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Up until the past, everything's been done in Grants Gateway. We have moved over to state financial system. Everything is working in there. We seem to be doing okay at that. We got all our authority in there, and the people that sign the vouchers and sign the bills and can agree to the contracts are all set up in there. The collaborative protocols were updated and then go into effect July 1st. So we have to take a look at that. There is a change policy that is attached to it, which gives you the log of everything that was changed. So anybody should be looking at that. There's also the same thing for the BLS protocols. It's the same thing that go into effect at the same time. Their policy is 2401 for the BLS and 2402 for the ALS change logs. So take a look at that. Since our last meeting, Bureau of EMS has created 2 new policies. 2403, which is the course requirement for hazmat response education. So that's the new courses that are available to take for hazmat education. And the other one is the instructor certification requirements and process. There is no change for them, so I'm not exactly sure what changed in them, so we have to take a look at that policy and figure out what changed. But anybody that is coming up as a new CIC or new CLI should take a look at what the requirements are and see where they have changed. HCS is not changed at all, so agencies don't have the ability to look up, to print their own cards as of yet, or anything that they were supposed to get with the change. So that just has been sitting there. I guess they can't do it. Dave mentioned something about CONs. So we have a lot of CON activity going on. Tonight was the Carmel that we had to re-vote on. Blue Care is a BLS service that wants to operate in Rockland County strictly as a BLS inter-facility transport, but there is no restriction on a CON that does that, so we won't be able to do it. We won't be able to actually restrict them, so they will have a full-blown CON on that. The public notice for that is being mailed next Monday. It will be advertised in the Rockland Journal newspaper on 5/28, 5/29. And there is a public hearing on 6/18 that will happen right here in this room for the pros and cons, and the people that support it and the people that oppose it will be able to speak out. We will have a hearing officer here, the transportation, or members from the transportation committee will be here, and we'll hear their arguments as to why and why not, and then a recommendation be made from the hearing officer. It will go back to the transportation committee, and a decision will be made as a recommendation that would come to this body. And again, the transportation committee will have a seconded motion to accept or a recommendation with acceptance or acceptance. Kingston Fire Department completed their ALS upgrade. It has been operating since January of '24 with as an ALS paramedic service, and they started out as a Municon, so they will be coming up for a conversion to a traditional CON to operate in Kingston. Spring Hill Ambulance has been approved for an ALS upgrade, but they still have not are not operating as of today. I don't believe they're operating as an ALS service. Beacon Ambulance was approved, and they were delayed a little bit, but they are now operating as an AEMT service as of 3/4/24. I was going to mention portable, but I think you hit that one pretty hard there. And IGEL, which I'm sure Dave will go over, as of this morning, they had 166 agencies participating in it, with approximately 1,500 EMTs trained and 300 insertions. So, other than some of the meetings that we have coming up, that's it. We do have HVREMSCO. Our next HVREMSCO meeting will be the 17th and 18th, and it's going to be in Saratoga. We have the EMS Memorial. I wanted to mention that. That was supposed to be in May. That was was postponed, and it's tentatively set for September 19th. And the reason it's postponed is because the stone did not come in, so they weren't able to expand the memorial, unfortunately. So hopefully everything will be done by then. And September 19th is after the HVREMSCO meeting. It's the day after the HVREMSCO meeting, so they're hoping that people that are at the HVREMSCO meeting will just stay over that night and attend the memorial the next day rather than travel back and forth a couple of times. Vital Signs is coming up in October. It's going to be in Rochester. And Ulster, the awards, we have Ulster, Dutchess, and Putnam. We're waiting for Ulster, Dutchess, and Putnam to submit, and Sullivan, I believe, to submit their awards. Rockland and Orange have submitted theirs already, so we have a couple more, we have another month to do that. So if you have awards, please submit them. Thank you. That's it. Questions?
Nothing?
Okay.
Something to discuss.
I don't know the exact.
Okay.
We can discuss it, but.
Okay.
Okay. South Blooming Grove, the village of South Blooming Grove had a Municon that was supposed to be converted as of May 8th, and it hasn't been as of yet. So I did get a letter, a request from Dan Clayton at the Bureau this morning, asking if we have received the paperwork, and we haven't. So I assume that they are going to take action on that as far as telling them that their municipal CON was not converted to a traditional CON. So what that means for them is if they do want to keep their CON, they will have to apply through the regular process. Right. So it won't be the Municon that they would have had, which makes things a little bit easier for them.
To the best of our knowledge, they have not operated yet, right?
No.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns for Bill? Hearing none. Mr. Crutcher, you could give your last report, please.
The only thing that is currently going on is the transition to NEMSIS 3.5, which is going to happen on July 1st. Vendors are aware that they have to transition their clients. if they don't transition, they're not going to be pushing any data, which is going to be a significant issue for that agency. One of the things that we changed at the region was how data flows to us. Initially with 3.4, we had data flowing to us and then to the state, from our regional elite site to theirs. We changed that so that it goes to the state first and comes back to us. And that takes the region out of the equation of having to deal with vendor issues and everything that entails after that, with validation failing, charts not coming through. That's now Peter Brody's problem. And he'll either fix it or he won't.
What was that date again?
July 1st. And ESO, the last conversation I had with them, they were transitioning kind of with small agencies first to make sure everything worked right. They told me they were on track for mid-late May with all of their clients in our region. We have 64 ESO clients, so that's a big chunk of data. Zoll does not appear to be having any issues, and we know that they are capable and have proven that they can transmit 3.5 data without a problem. So for any agencies that use Zoll, that's good news. Because traditionally Zoll has been problematic, and that's putting it politely. And that's really it.
Any questions for Jeff?
Just
Yeah.
just one thing with that, the state is very adamant about it being the agency and the vendor's job to make sure that the conversion goes.
Maybe the agency and the vendor's job, but they put the full responsibility on the agency. Correct.
That's true, yes, it is the agency that is responsible to make sure the vendor
They're
is
the ones
doing
who
what
make
they're
the
supposed to
estimate.
do.
Yes.
They said it once, they said it about 27 times. They're not holding the vendors accountable because they don't have a contract with them. They have a contract with the agencies for you to be able to do what it is you do. And they're holding your feet to the fire because the contract is between the agency and the vendor. So, again, this is now May the 15th. If you haven't had a conversation with your vendor, I highly recommend that you get a conversation with your vendor going. Most of you, I assume, have done that and gone from there. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right, so we're going to move over to committee reports now. I think we'll start with the training committee. Mr. Violante.
Okay, thank you. Much request, we had planned an instructor update on Mulan, and with much chagrin it was canceled because we only had a few people that decided that they wanted to come to it. And we had 2 different dates and put it out in the Tri-County area, Tri-Regional area. And so we're going to look at rescheduling that for the fall. We had a CLI class that we were going to do with Westchester that they had, apparently it was full, and so we're going to look at another one in the fall to do with them. And we'll see about hosting that in the Hudson Valley area. And we have another committee meeting coming up pretty soon, so we'll have more on that.
Any questions for David? Thank you. Pat, she takes us through REMAC.
I'll be the briefest. The last REMAC meeting was early March. It was a very short meeting, about 40 minutes. To sum up, really the main significant part was just talking about iGel and the process, the challenges in acquiring the data, and overall how well the program's going. And I personally anticipate submitting, in the protocol. Given New York State, it might take a little while, but it really works, and it's very easy to insert, so that's great. That's really all I have.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Dr. Papish? Hearing none. Glenn, you've already clicked off the Transportation Committee?
Yep.
Again, we're still looking for public information in the Protocol Committee chairs, so we'd love to have it. Unfortunately, Albie could not be here tonight. Tim, is there any chance you've got information?
Sure. So I don't think it's any surprise to anybody around the table that none of the EMS-related legislation in the executive budget made it into the state budget. There are still, if I'm not mistaken, 5 or 6 days left in session. You'll get a day to fact check it.
Things really had
Well,
to
it
be.
was 12 a week ago, so.
Right, yeah.
You know, there's not that many days left in session. There are still several bills out there that there is a small percentage of hope for. The two primary ones are EMS as an essential service and TIP and TAD. TIP and TAD has the highest chance of succeeding. EMS is an essential service, a little less than that.
I don't mean to interrupt, but
Treatment in place and transport to alternative destinations.
first time I had it.
There were
What am I tipping
several
and
other
tapping
bills
on?
out there. There was one that would remove EMS from the real property tax cap, the 2% tax cap for each town and municipality. That is not going anywhere. I've been assured by our lobbyists that that's not going to happen. There's legislation by a local assemblyman Euclid that requires the Thruway Authority to issue emergency services permits for ambulances and emergency vehicles that they're already doing for fire trucks. Other legislation that would allow volunteer firefighters and EMS to claim both state income and local property tax credits, and a couple other bills, but none of that is really going anywhere. The two highest percentage bills that are left out there that might have a small chance of passing this session are the TIP and TAD and EMS as essential service. I'm not holding much hope out of either one of those personally. Sir?
Who's fighting?
Who's fighting which?
Well, who's stopping it?
Or which one?
All of it. I mean, apparently we've gotten almost nothing out of it.
So, without getting into a long-winded conversation, EMS is an essential service. That particular bill had quite a bit of stuff in it that affected a lot of different people. And I don't think there's a lot of consensus between counties, towns, and villages. I know that NICOM is supporting the New York Conference of Counties. They're supporting it. But there's not a lot of consensus among their membership, but there is some discontent with people out there. So I think there's some municipalities that are not thrilled about it because the county's going to be left holding the bag in terms of funding it. And there's a lot of other stuff going on with that. There's CRM stuff. You'd have to really look at it and really dig into that to see, and then you get a glimpse as to who might be fighting that. As far as TIP and TAD is concerned, well, that's going to put the onus on the state to pay for Medicaid funding rather. And, there's only so much money to go around. So I don't think the state is actively fighting it, but there's not a lot of support legislatively for it funding. Not enough support, I should say, legislatively to fund it. So, those are the two big bills there. And the other stuff, some of it was just demonstration stuff, some of it didn't even get out of committee. Like removing EMS from the property tax cap, for example. That was a bill that was sponsored that really didn't gain any traction at all.
Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, so if these bills don't make it out,
Yeah.
they die on the vine?
No, they don't, not this year. They were all reintroduced this year, and they will be reintroduced automatically next year, which brings me to the second part of legislative, is that we spoke earlier in the year about a legislative breakfast. And Albie and I have been communicating a little bit about this. We decided earlier in the year as a group that we'll hold off now and do it in the fall if we're going to do it. And I think because these bills will automatically be reintroduced, those that don't get in, or all of them that don't get in, for this cycle, for the legislative cycle before the legislature goes out of session, would be a good time to talk to our legislators in the fall so that we can prep them for our priorities for the following session. So I think we need to decide whether or not we're going to have that legislative breakfast. Albie and I will work to, if we're going to do that, we'll work to seek sponsors for that to pay for it, because I know we don't have a budget for it. And we can, I don't think it would cost too much. I think we'd be able to get enough sponsors even from the larger services. And we'll make it Windsor. They're not here, I don't think Mike is here. We can figure that out. I think we can find some sponsors to help. And I think it would be worthwhile. I think we got a lot of traction the last time we did it. It's been a while. It's before COVID, 18, 19, something like that. It was quite a while ago. So I personally, I think it's a good idea, but it's not my decision, it's our decision. Next.
So after the second introduction, then it dies on the vine?
Correct. 2-year cycle.
And also just to sort of
tap on what Tim was saying, Peter, to your point, is there's a lot of agencies that do EMS or are part of EMS, like NAAT, AAA, IFF, they're all supporting all of these things. The SEMSCO, there's a lot of information. If you go to the SEMSCO's website, there's a lot of information on there on how to find your legislator and write them a letter about these specific things. So there's a whole process that's available and possible. There's a lot of groups working together to get these things passed.
Yeah, you know, it was our hope at State Council that we can build on the success of direct pay last year and really get this stuff pushed through, because EMS was the flavor of the month on the Hill this year, and it just didn't really go anywhere. So we're pretty disappointed in that, quite frankly.
Just so we're clear, and Robert, I'll get you 1 second, I saw your hand up. We have to keep in mind that as the council, we cannot lobby. Right, so we're not allowed to lobby. What we are allowed to do is advocate to each and every one of you, and through the legislative breakfast, have this informational of, hey, these are the things that are important to us, but we can't go out and hire a lobbyist. We can't go lobby for it. We're regulated by law, not allowed to do that. But these issues are important to every one of your agencies. So to David's point, you know, we spend time, whatever organization is, whether it's NYSVERA or Onion or FASNY or whoever it is, you know, is spending a great deal of time trying to get these agendas across on behalf of all of the members. So I would encourage everybody sitting in the room, you know, while the councils are great and you guys get a lot done, I would encourage you to seriously start thinking about becoming part of, you know, these organizations. Whatever organization you feel best serves your agency and your region and county, then definitely do it, because to both of their points, when we speak as one voice, they listen. When it's a bunch of clutter in the background, there's a tendency to kind of ignore it because it's not a movement. So.
And we, so for full disclosure, I'm once again chairman of Onion for the next couple of years. But we work closely with NYSVERA, we work closely with chiefs, with FASNY, et cetera. And we formed, once again, reformed the coalition that we had several years ago. And we all signed off on this. We sent letters out. NYSOC is behind us. So we have a good coalition. We just, once again, didn't get any traction. But we as individual trade associations outside of HVREMSCO or SEMSCO can lobby, and we do aggressively lobby. We have marketing people, we have lobbyists that we pay for out of our membership deals. Obviously, HVREMSCO and SEMSCO and the legislative committee that sit on SEMSCO, we can't do any lobbying, but the people within those committees can on their own, for their trade associations or agencies.
Robert, go ahead.
Do we, so I guess as a regional council, we can't do this, but have in the past, we organized or attempted to organize local, regional, like the county EMS councils at the legislative conference day over up in Albany on the floor. Because as full disclosure, I was actually not anymore. So as former member of the IFF Local 2623, so like, you know, state professionals, they push at that legislative conference. So we're in uniform, going and shaking hands and trying to get in there.
Don't believe as a council we can go up, because if it's interpreted as, we can't go up and lobby.
No, not us. Like this would be a thing where, like, as the vice president of Dutchess County EMS Council, we'd be like, all right, every participating agency in Dutchess County, I need you on, what is it day? You just pick one. On Tuesday, you go up to Albany and you give me the list of who we have to go pound doors on.
Well, yeah, and that's what we've done as Onion. We've broken up into groups and member agencies from those districts. We assign those legislators and we set up the appointments for them and everything. But it's really not about one lobby day, to be honest with you. It's really about district offices when they're home in the districts after they're out of
there's the talk.
That's where the power is. We each can make appointments with our legislators throughout the state.
The local legislator's office.
And meet with them and spend the time speaking with them and letting them know what's important to us. What I'll do, Karen, is I'll send out this summary list that I have so we can put it in the minutes of the bills that we were talking about earlier. So that you can have that distributed if you want, and it's just a summary that we put together.
You could put it up on Boardable.
I could put it up on board. That's a great idea. And by the way, I RSVP'd on board, just so you know.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just saying, that's what it's for.
But those are great pieces, right? So that's really where we're at. Anybody else want to come in on that? No? Thank you. Tim, thank you. That was great. And again, as one voice, we have the opportunity to be able to make a difference. So thank you very much. Unfortunately, that takes us into community paramedicine, and I believe that's you.
There's no activity on CP legislatively right now, along with everything else. There had been, we all know, we talked about this before, there had been the law that was passed that allowed, if I'm not mistaken, was it Executive Order 6? There was an executive order during the pandemic. This extended any programs that were authorized under PEDO to continue as CP programs for the next 2 years. But it didn't do anything for new programs or anything else. So there's nothing legislatively happening with that right now, although we, the Royal, we are still lobbying and aggressively pushing to have CP legislated so that it can be more widespread. Personally, I believe these programs do that.
The Innovations Committee is working on that, and they have something that's going out, it's supposed to go out to legislators and folks too about that program.
Beautiful. That's neat. All right, unfortunately, Desiree couldn't be with us tonight. Is there anybody else on the awards committee wants to give a report? No? All right, so the biggest thing, as Bill said before, the deadlines are coming. Guys, I gotta be honest with you, the Hudson Valley has really been a shining star when it comes to, achieving and being awarded statewide council awards. So you have some phenomenal people inside your organizations. You have some phenomenal people doing some great work in your regions. Acknowledge them. Literally, it's going to take you about 30 to 45 minutes to type it up on the form and tell somebody how great they are. Even if they don't win, at least that acknowledgement goes somewhere, right? So, we always have the honorable mentions, as we call them. You may not have won for your county, but the fact that people recognize the job you're doing goes a long way to motivating someone that, feels unappreciated. So I'll kind of encourage you there. But more importantly, let's get those pieces in. That takes us up to Mr. Cuomo and finding a new president.
I did my best, sorry.
Okay,
Well, the nominating committee met on the 13th, and it was a fairly short meeting. And all of the current officers expressed interest in continuing in that capacity, and there were no other, we received no other letters or notifications of anybody else that wanted to run for office. So we put forth the current slate of officers as our new slate, which is David Grass for president, Rich Harris for vice president, Wayne Chan for treasurer, and Steve Wygan for secretary. So, time comes to vote.
We can do it under new business, or we can do it now. Does anybody have any objections to just holding the vote now? Mr. Cuomo, you have the floor. Go for it.
Okay.
Remember,
We'll
say
start with-
anybody for president. Say it with passion.
We'll start with president. We'll start with president. Okay, so, in keeping with our customary procedures, I have to ask if there are any nominations from the floor. I'll have to do it 3 times. So the current nominee for president is David Grass. Having said that, are there any nominations from the floor for president? Are there any nominations from the floor for president? Are there any nominations from the floor for president? I'm saying in 3 different tones. So if anybody has hearing loss, maybe high frequency hearing loss, maybe you don't have low frequency. Anyway, so hearing. Sorry, Dave, I tried.
All right, we'll stay in the room.
I move that the nominations are closed for president, and that the secretary cast 1 ballot for 1 David Grass.
Okay. Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So
Thank you.
moved.
Congratulations.
Speaking with President.
Thank you.
Congratulations and condolences.
It's an honor. Seriously, though, I joke around, but it's an honor.
Okay, for the office of Vice President, we have Richard Parrish as our nominee. But before we vote, are there any nominations from the floor for Vice President? Are there any nominations from the floor for Vice President? Are there any nominations from the floor for Vice President?
Motion to close the ballot.
Hearing none.
I'll move the secretary cast one ballot for one Richard Parrish.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Rich. Next, Wayne Chan for nominated for treasurer. Are there any other nominations from the floor for treasurer? Are there any nominations from the floor for treasurer? Are there any nominations from the floor for treasurer?
Move that the office of treasurer's nominations be closed and the secretary cast one ballot for one Mr. Wenchang.
I second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Just say your name when you're making a motion and seconding, so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just so that we get it on
Glenn's
record.
making all the motions. All right, so lastly, we have Office of Secretary, Steve Wygand is the nominee. Are there any other nominations from the floor for secretary? Are there any other nominations from the floor for secretary? Are there any other nominations from the floor for secretary?
Don't jump all at once.
I move that the nominations be closed for secretary, and I guess it will have to be the president that has to cast the ballot for the secretary.
I second it. Nick, second.
Okay, and Glenn Alvin made the motion. So, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Don't worry, your salary just went up, Steve.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you our officers for 2024.
Thank you, guys.
Guys, don't feel bad, I went through this for 14 years as president.
It's all right.
So,
No, we joke around about it, but I do want to take just a half a second and thank Rich and Wayne and Steve for coming along for the ride. Again, this is an unfunded, it takes a lot of time to make all this stuff work in the background. We couldn't do any of it without Bill and Karen and Jeff. So, you know, we appreciate everything that you guys do, and we look forward to another year. So we'll make it all happen.
Something on that note, at the state meeting, they talked a lot about it's time that we start bringing in our replacements. I've been doing this a long time. Dave has been doing it. We need young people to start coming to these meetings and getting involved, right? And not just bringing them here, bringing them to the county meeting, get them up to the state meeting, let them see what's going on up there. But we've got to start cultivating our replacements.
Now, I'll just expand on that for a half a second. He was not referring to any of you in the room. But in all honesty, right, we have to start to think about who's going to run the ship 10 years from now? Who's going to run the show 15 years from now? And if you don't start training that new blood and get somebody passionate about it, there will be a tendency for everybody to go, yeah, no, I'm not doing it. And then where do we sit? You know, so again, to Rich's point, I would encourage you within your organizations, sometimes you have to listen to the new blood. And it's going to be different from what you think it has been in the past. That's the great part about change, right? It's always changing.
They may be scared because you're setting the bar so high.
What's that?
They may be scared because you're setting the bar so high.
You, my friend, need glasses. Not very. Outstanding.
We may be setting the bar high, but new people coming in are gonna have different approaches. We're talking right now, are we computer literate? You talk to somebody young, and that's where it's going. We need young people in here with different ideas on how we're gonna do things. You don't need us old farts leading the thing.
Rich, this is a
old
side.
I can't.
Problem system-wide, because even, at the individual agencies, even if we are getting young people, they're not staying.
Right.
And we don't have young people to draw from. It's not enough.
It's because everybody's moved to Florida. Who wants to stay in New York State? It's a whole other problem.
Outstanding. All right, Mr. Violante, that brings us to State Council.
All right.
I know you sent the reports out.
Yep, I sent the report out to everybody. Karen sent the report out. I forwarded it.
It's on board.
Any questions?
It's on boardable.
It's on boardable?
No, I sent it out.
Sent it out.
She
It'll be on
sent it to
board.
me the other day and I sent it out.
It'll be on boardable.
David can put it on.
And again, in David's defense, guys, a lot of information, a lot of things happen in those 2 days. And I would say, and Tim and Dave, Rich, Bill, correct me if you think I'm wrong, 50% of what goes on up there happens after the meetings. Whether it's sitting around a table having breakfast in the morning, or it's sitting around having dinner afterwards, that's where a lot of work gets done. That's where a lot of networking gets done. So, I know I've seen Peter come up and visit, at least once. There's a lot of information, and I would encourage each of you to come up and, spend a day with us and see how functional, state works. Tim, you got something?
Yeah, along those lines. So I actually sat down with Alana.
Yeah.
Alana
Bagley.
I'm sorry?
Alana Bagley.
Yeah. It was partly about the movie that we saw at the State Council that's been going around. And I spoke to her about that specifically, and that I really think that while it was great for everybody in the room at State Council to see that, preaching to the choir. You don't have to convince anybody that was in the room that we have a problem. And what I said to her was that we really need to open up that message to elected officials. And I said, is there any possibility of opening that up in terms of live streaming, that kind of stuff? And she said they are working on that. But they also are, I think it was, I want to say $50, you could have the rights to it for a week or something like that.
For 7 days, yeah.
For 7 days, yeah.
And I would love to see, and I know they're working on it, to have that be a presentation at a legislative full house meeting.
Yeah.
To be able to take 15 minutes and play that for every single legislative city and
It's
session.
not 15 minutes, it's almost an hour. And I told her, and she did say that they're looking to break it up into smaller chunks too, which would be a huge benefit, because you're not gonna get the legislators to sit still for an hour. It's just not gonna happen, to watch one message. And there was a lot of repetition, and it was great, but it could be shortened up in my opinion. But the other conversation I had with her was exactly what we're talking about here. We're talking about, Rich, is that, and I even said to her, look, you and people like you are the future of this industry. You're younger, you're full of energy, and you have a lot of new ideas that might be change for all of us, but we need to look within our own agencies. And I was just saying to Brian a minute ago, Spring Hill is a good example of that. Spring Hill is stronger than they ever were before. I knew Spring Hill for 35 years in the Steve K days, and it was a different agency back then. But now they have younger people, younger leadership. They have 10 trucks. They have a very strong agency. They're starting ALS very soon. I'm told to get the monitors in a couple of weeks, right? And they're a good, strong agency with young leadership, and that's an example of what we should be doing with all our agencies. In the fire service, I don't know, I'm sure it's a little, in our service, we just don't have a lot of young people. We don't have any people. And I did hire 3 paramedics this week, and only one of them is full-time. But the point is there's not a lot of young people, as Rich was saying, coming in. Those that we do have, we need to mentor. We need to find our own replacements within our own organizations, not just here on this housing. We don't need nicer.
No, that's good. That's exactly what we need to hear. So, thank you. David, I appreciate the report. It was quick, concise, and informative. Reportable.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
There are really a couple things I do want to go over, and one of them really is that we all have to take this information back to our counties and to our agencies. I know I send this out to everybody in Dutchess County, all the agencies there. Please send it out to all of the agencies in your respective counties that you represent, because they need to see some of this information and know what's going on, including exactly what Tim and Mitch were just talking about, right? And absolutely, folks are welcome to come up, sit with us, we'll explain it all out. Terry and I are gonna be working on a program to introduce folks to what is state council, what does all mean, what are the committees, how do things happen, who does what, so that folks can come up and not take 6 months to figure out what's happening, right? Like they'll have an idea of all of it and what's going on there. So that should make it a lot easier for folks. So did everybody get this report? Did you all look through it? No, okay. Yeah, it's on the list.
There's some good things in it.
Yeah, there's
Really great things in it.
yeah, I mean, there are some things there, right? So when we talk about spending, this is from the Finance Committee, there's a lot of opportunities for your agencies to have folks become certified and it not cost you anything. So there's academy programs that's where sponsors can apply for it, that's full tuition paid. Agency ride-along, if someone rides along for a 10-hour orientation, then you can sign off that agency verification form so that they can get state funding to take an EMT class. There's an EMT retention program where if somebody has paid for the program and on their own and then volunteers for your agency for up for a year, the state will pay for their program retroactively. There's a lot of different things out there, and so I think we all need to take advantage of them for our agencies to help with some of the funding of the programs because it's out there. They did have a motion to allocate $10.57 million per year of aid to localities for education, REMSCOs, and program agencies, which will include an increase for this year's contract increases. And so that was passed on. What that means is we need to spend that money from all the different levels, right, including the educational piece. The CMEs, for those agencies doing CME, the portal is going to change so that it's no longer doing like, I think it's up to 7 at a time when you submit your CME. It's gonna be one person at a time that you submit in the portal. The reason they did this was to make it easier when there was one person's submission that wasn't gonna make it. It didn't cancel everybody out, it just cancels that one person out and everybody else actually goes through. And so that's the reason for them doing it. So you'll see that change coming up in the portal, that you can only do one submission at a time. We talked about TIPTAD, we talked about federal EMS activity. The 0606 tag from the systems is talking about the definition of need for CONs. And so they came up with their first draft of what definition of need looks like. There was not a lot of discussion against it. There will be some discussion moving forward. It's onboardable, and that committee's working on that to move forward. So that's going to be really good because that'll help to make this kind of less of a gray area and move it away from want and into need, how you demonstrate need versus want, which is the biggest problem that all of us face in trying to determine whether a CON should go through or not. From the safety side, we had a great presentation by Katie Oldakowski. I butchered that, I apologize. She's actually from Ulster County and she worked on the M. Haney's Hero Program. She knows you, right? And Brenda about doing the work that we have with that committee. So I introduced myself to her. It's like, stay with Brenda, keep doing stuff. And so they're working on it. And so that's great stuff. For the Mental Health Association of New York is what that's for, and some of their initiatives. If you all aren't familiar, there's some OSHA regulatory changes that are out there that y'all need to be familiar with. They could potentially cost your agency a lot of money to comply. And so there's a lot of work being done in trying to understand it, figure it out, what it actually means. So please, if you haven't looked at any of that stuff, you need to go out and look at that. The comment period was open, I think, until June 21st, and so there's a little bit of time, but not a lot of time. That was a pretty short time frame for a comment period. In terms of quality metrics, we talked a little bit about data movement already and how difficult that is. Please just make sure that you, as your agencies, meet with vendors and ensure that your data is getting to where it needs to go to. One of the things we are seeing with the iGel program is just how horrible it is getting data from point A through the telephone line up to point Z, it feels like, right? And what it looks like when it finally gets there. And so we've reached out to agencies, regions, the state, vendors to try and clarify some of that data. So if you get the little green check mark that your PCR is locked and in good condition and under the Christmas tree, that only means that it meets NEMSIS values, and that's all it means. Your agency really needs to check to make sure it actually got to the state and that the data is up there. So if you go to the state website, the Bureau's website, go to the main page, go to the Operations tab, and then go to the Quality Improvement tab, and you'll see a whole set of new information up there. It's the QI manual, the Quick Start guide, and all of the metrics from NEMSCO and the AHA, and how to do quality assurance, quality improvement, at your agency, what the metrics are, how to figure out the metrics, and how to do run charts and all that kind of thing. We've been going around county by county doing a presentation on that. If you want some information at your county meeting, let me know. I'm happy to come out to do that. We'll do it here at the region as well. And we're looking to do more of that around the state too. So if you have any questions on that, please reach out to me. We've landed on a definition for patient and patient contact because literally out of all of the states in this fine United States of ours, there are only a handful that actually define what a patient is and what patient contact means. So as a committee, we've landed on something that we're going to hope to push towards regulation that everybody will be able to use across New York State in determining what a patient is, what patient contact means, and then what you'll need to do for a PCR, ePCR data collection measure to take care of what has to be done. NEMSIS 3.5 we've talked about already. For the Innovations Committee, they're working on the Mobile Integrated Health and Community Paramedicine program and the Essential Services program. They sent 2 motions up to SEMSCO as official recommendations to go out to the Community Paramedicine Work Group and to disseminate that information to all the agencies. So you should see things coming from that. Let me see. Before I get into some other stuff, Vital Signs is in Rochester in October. The Innovations Awards are up on the state website. Those close on July 1st, so those don't go through the region, they go straight to the state. So if you have an innovation award you'd like to nominate somebody for, please go check out the state website and do that. The memorial is Thursday, September 19th, we talked about that. And next council meetings are in Saratoga. Full agency inspections are ongoing. Some of the issues that they're seeing are with vehicle labeling, but they see great operational improvements overall coming down the line, so that's great news for everybody. A reminder that there's MOLST training out there. Everybody should take that, push that out through your agencies. It's fantastic. You get CME credit for it. Maya Dorsett and team did a fantastic job with that. To that end, we are also just finished recording a training for hospice, for the hospice protocol that's out. And so take a look at that. Fantastic job with that protocol. Let me see, CME is about 6 weeks out or so. If you have anybody from your agency that you sent information in on to recertify, make sure you got that number back by email for your recert. And if you have any issues, call them and use that number so to make sure that they have it. If they have your information, the person's certification is good, even though the expiration date comes up until you hear something from the state. So as long as you submit it in the time frame that you needed to, the person is good. We talked about the new policy statements, and we talked about the IGL guidance. Anybody have any questions about that stuff at the moment?
One thing that Gene Myers talked about, they're doing audits of CME programs, and in the Buffalo area, they found people are taking credit for 2 hours when they're only spending 10 minutes on the program.
Online programs.
On the online program. They had to, there's a way that they can track how long you've been on, right? If you only are on for 10 minutes, that's all you're getting credit for, not the 2 hours. So whatever vendor you're using, I know if you're on Vital Signs Academy, at the end, that's when they give you the code to take the quiz.
Just to add to your OSHA comments, if
Yes,
this is a good time, there's a couple things there. One is that the comment period, as Dave mentioned, is only 45 days instead of the typical 90 or 180 days. And the speculation that I've heard from both council and from the lobbyists is that the reason that is because they want to get this signed into law before the presidential election. And so it's an accelerated time frame. But everybody, Dave mentioned it, but everybody should really pay attention to this because just a couple of examples. First of all, the primary physicals that you're going to have to do for all of your members when you first get people into your agencies is going to be expanded, so it's going to cost more money. On average, about $100 more per physical. But more importantly, that's going to have to be repeated every 2 years. Because right now, we don't have a standard to do that. We don't have a requirement. So now you're going to have this unfunded mandate of having to have physicals for your members every 2 years. Which nobody, I think, should really argue on the merits of having healthy employees or healthy members. But I think that the comments that people would make that would be better comments to make instead of saying, no, you shouldn't do this because it's going to cost us money, is that we need more time to plan for this budgetarily. So that please extend the comment period or extend the implementation period or something along those lines. Just being smart about the comments. The other thing, one is mental health and wellness requirements, but the other thing that's going to be difficult for EMS agencies, especially smaller agencies, is that each agency is going to have to come up with an emergency response plan for hazards in your community, the health and wellness of your membership. And that's going to be difficult to do because unlike fire departments, they're not used to seeing EMS folks, EMS leaders coming into their businesses and saying, show me what you have here. I mean, that's just not a common thing, if at all, unless the EMS agency is part of the fire department. So one of the things that we're going to see are some framework documents with which to put these plans together. But what we also discussed on a call with council was that we could work with our local fire departments or work with our emergency response personnel at the county level to try and get some information and have them open some doors for this figure to try and get these documents done, because there is going to be a requirement to do this kind of stuff. And no, it's not fun unless you get that. So, those are just a couple of examples of the things that are coming with OSHA regulations that everybody really does need to be aware of. These are big changes. And it's the first time, by the way, that I think it was 18 years that this regulation.
It was the old fire brigade standard, right? And they've upgraded. But there was a comment period, and the 45 days is the extension.
Oh,
So they extended it. So probably not going to extend it again.
No, but I think the implementation period could be a little bit longer than other proposed.
So once again, take this information back to your counties and send it out to your agencies, please, 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 so that they all know what's going on at the agency level. IGEL stuff. People love the IGEL program. They really do. I hate the data of the IGEL program. It takes a lot of time to work through all the data and figure it out and get the things from the state and go back to the agencies and who's doing what, and who's not doing it, is it getting there, is it not getting there. As of today, what we have is that there are 264 verified insertions, 53 additional ones that we have what's called a Google on, which means that an agency did an insertion, sent us a note that they did it, but the report hasn't appeared on the state site yet. And so in sum, we have about 317. The remainder of this data is based only on the 264 insertions that are out there. I'm going to give you some median numbers. The outpatient, the first IGEL is about 6 minutes. The usual size is a 4. People have been doing great with end-tidal CO2 values. There are 178 that are confirmed, 65 that aren't. The 65 that aren't are situations where it's called on the scene like it's terminated out in the field, and so you don't get another agency, you don't get the person to the hospital to have it confirmed. 247 have been successful, 17 have not, and they're going through their QA process for why they're not. I like that. That's good. 245, there's no adverse events. Again, this is at 264, right? So in all these other cases, it was because the adverse events were nausea, apnea, distress, vomiting, that kind of thing. In terms of outcomes,
nausea of the provider or the person?
It's just that. You interpret it how you want.
I was nauseous at the IGEL.
That's the problem sometimes with some of the fields, right? They pick one thing that meant another. We have probably 20 of these insertions that we hunted down, and they're like, oh, sorry, the guy was a paramedic. We forgot to change their certification in our vendor system, and so it's really a paramedic that did it, not an EMT. Or it was a student, or it was an AEMT, or it was an intubation, not an IGEL. This is stuff that we have to filter through and figure out.
It's a lot of work.
And it is a lot of work.
Hey, dude, this 264 is in our region or in the state?
State.
Okay.
Yeah. State. So there have been some instances of ROS, good outcomes, and whatnot, trying to figure, I don't know if these are completely tied to the IGELs, right, for it, but we have some of that data and we're looking at it. In terms of age, the median age is 68, weight is 86 kgs. Sorry guys, but there are twice as many male cardiac arrests as female cardiac arrests. And for regions, the region sort of leading this is Central New York, Hudson Valley with 52 insertions, Hudson Valley 39, and then it goes on down from there. I will say that Med Standards and CMAC and HVREMSCO is hugely supportive of this. It's a great program that a lot of folks around the state have just enjoyed the heck out of EMTs being able to do this. Some of the great benefits are that it's a lot easier to ventilate a patient using an IGEL than it is with a BVM and mask, right? Backup mask seal is difficult. We are going to liaise with the University of Buffalo to do the statistical data analysis of all of this and present this at the next state council meeting with the hope that we can make this move to make this the next BLS adjunct that's out there statewide, as we also try and work nationally to include this in the national standard scope of practice. And so those are some of the next steps, where it's going, what's happening. I'm happy to take any questions on that. Certainly thank you to everybody involved in doing this and the region for their work with the data and trying to figure stuff out. And honestly, the state has been really good in trying to scrub the data and get the right data in the right places too. they're really working hard with vendors to ensure that the data gets to them and it's the right data in the right place at the right time.
So the only thing I want to comment before you jump in, Robert, is we should be thanking, whether they knowingly or unknowingly, you know, the Arlington Fire District for allowing David to be able to put this kind of time and effort into it, and then simultaneously Mrs. Violante, because I will tell you that, you know, this is, and we've had many conversations, turned into almost a full-time job of mining this data and collecting the data and rallying the troops to make sure that it's all done. So it's important to keep in mind that it's for a reason, right? And we should be supportive of, you know, thanking Arlington Fire District for allowing you to spend some time. Mrs. Violante for sparing him to be able to do it, because it's huge, right? And at some point, we're going to have to either hand it off or make it a fact, where it just becomes policy. So can't do this forever.
Yeah. No, and honestly, I think the end point of this is going to be the next day council, where we wrap it up, present it, they decide what they're gonna do with it, and then either it becomes a BLS adjunct or it doesn't. And my guess is that it's going to. Yep.
Can't see it.
Can't see it not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just such a fantastic tool. So, Rob.
For the 39 successful iGels that we've had in the Hudson Valley, or
Yeah.
is it possible, because like Rich was talking before about getting your replacements in here, I never knew what the Hudson Valley Regional EMS Council did, other than it was down here in Newburgh, and it's actually New Windsor, but
Same way.
like, that's an easy thing for us to do, is get 39 letters from the EMS Council out to these members of our community who've successfully done this, and be like, hey, we recognize that you've taken this new program, you've done this, you've done it successfully. I think we would get a lot of capital out of that, and we can simply spit out a letter with the names if it's available. I don't know if you can parse that out or not, but.
So, yeah, I know all the agencies that are involved. As Bill said, we have 166 agencies, like 100 or so, 103 are actually doing this, or have done the training, or are doing this. I send out quarterly an email to every agency and their medical director, thanking them, letting them know what some of the challenges are, giving them this data, and then giving them their agency data specifically. So it's stratified by the overall data and then their specific agency. They can see what that is. And they send back notes that they're very appreciative and thankful, and it helps with their quality improvement and what they're doing with their agency and that bit of it too. So it's a great idea. We are doing a piece of that too.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. So like for Dave to, and Dr. Papich to send a note to him, like there's an EMT in Fairfield, I know, I believe we had a successful one, because I was there and I watched it happen. But like that would probably mean a lot to them, and then, because I mean, at least on BLS provider, they would be like, holy crap, somebody's actually paying attention.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's a great idea.
If you give me a list, I'll help with the letters, and I'll just present it.
Excellent.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's a great idea.
Great idea.
Great, absolutely great idea. Any other questions about IGEL?
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. Yeah, it's great. Again, this is, one of the things we talked about in the Quality Metrics Committee, and that came up in a couple other committees, was doing more work like this around the state within New York State. We see a lot of stuff come out of other states and other agencies and other areas, and we're doing this stuff here, right? And so it's fantastic to do, and there's a lot of other educational institutions that are on board in doing this, like New York Medical College, the University of Buffalo, and a number of others around. And we'll see more of these things happening. We did this actually years ago with the nitrous oxide program. We ran a study here with agencies in our region, wrote a whole thing, a protocol, sent it up to Dr. Daly, and that's how it continues to be in the protocol today. And so, because that wasn't published and moved on, that's the next thing that we're going to try and do as a study, just to put it out there so it's memorialized. And so this is the second program like that out of our region that is impacting literally providers around the state in what they do clinically. So it's fantastic. It's good stuff.
Can you tell that story anywhere, David? And I know, I think you said the public information still, but Can we tell our story, like what, you know, when we talk about all the legislative things, it'd be nice to have that.
Extremely poorly.
Yeah, we don't do it. We don't communicate that very well at all.
Is that on the state report? Do you want to mention the applause that came out of the end of HVREMSCO for the adoption of the changes that were out for public comment?
Oh, the education standards, regulation, that was all.
And certifications.
Yeah, that was all, approved.
That was the exciting part.
It really was, so it hasn't, it's all been approved, it's gonna take a few weeks to come out, but, the education standards were put into regulation and changed. It's the first time in 27 or more years that regulation has been changed at the state level, in EMS, that was the first one, so you'll see a length of certification going to 4-year cycle.
It already has, we've gotten part of the 4-year extension.
I don't know how that's happening. It would take like 6 weeks to do, so that's phenomenal.
And it's only for new classes.
Yeah, right. New classes, so you're not gonna get your new one, right? You're not gonna get an update to your current certification.
Right, there'll be no,
Yeah.
just for clarity,
Yeah.
so you take it back to your councils and you take it back to your agencies. There'll be no extensions.
Right.
But when you renew the next cycle, it'll be a 4-year card.
Correct, right.
And did you say they already came out?
A couple of people who did the CME have gotten the cards back for 4 years.
We just gotta make, I would challenge them to look, because I've never seen anything happen that fast.
Yeah.
Because it still has to go to the commissioner for signatures.
Yeah, it's still a commissioner.
Still gotta go to the commissioners, and it won't go until there's a policy statement.
Right.
But what you may have seen, remember, in the CME program, they'll roll up to 9 months on another extension. So that could be what you're seeing, you know, as far as there. Karen, go ahead.
I thought I read that it was coming in if you were renewing in July, then that you would be eligible for the 4-year certification. But before that, you were still going to be stuck in the 3-year.
So again, I don't know where you heard that, and that could be factual. But I do know at state, it was voted and approved in HVREMSCO,
Yep.
which means it now goes to the commissioner's desk. The commissioner then has to sign it, then it has to be published. And you'll see it come out in the policy statement. Right. Again, I would find it really, really amazing if something was that fast at the state, but it is a hot button that everybody's looking for, so it may have gotten to
And there's a
one.
lot more things than the 4-year certification, so,
Yes.
like, you know, and so that also means that they may realign the CME program as to what the requirements are and what you're gonna have to do. There's a lot of, theory that they're
A lot of
going
logistics.
to double the national registry so that it aligns year to year with them, so it's not more work that you have to do over time, that it just line up and match up and you won't be doing extra. So there's a lot more things in there to take a look at. Right,
Those are
thank you.
some of the good news that you can take back to your
Yeah,
agencies.
for sure. Good stuff.
Anything else for David? We're gonna move into old business. Brenda, Wayne, you guys have a report?
Well, we haven't done all that much.
Okay.
We did have a meeting and there was a survey out to Orange County agencies.
Okay.
I don't know when the deadline for that is. It's looking at, from the provider's perspective, what resources do they have? What resources might they use? And what is their knowledge about any of this, basically?
Would you be interested in passing that on to the other counties? So to the other regions?
If I get that data, this came down from someone else to me that,
Oh,
hey,
okay.
you know this is out there.
Oh, so somebody else is doing the survey?
I
Okay.
had asked a few people to do something like that, but I don't know who picked up the ball and ran it.
Okay. Wayne?
In Orange County, the county itself put out a survey.
Okay.
And I'm trying to get the answers to the survey.
All right.
And what they're up to. And then as far as Orange County, the Southern ambulance was I've been talking to about putting resilience officers in. And they're quite pleased with that idea. So we went the way up the county, the south of Illinois.
All right, excellent. All right, so the only other thing that we put under old business, and it's something that we have to discuss here as a council and come to an agreement, one of the things that the state has done to open up the award nomination process is now created a portal where individuals can now write a nomination for an award. So where historically it's come through our councils, right? And I'm assuming that in your councils, you get those nominations from your agencies for awards. They're now opening it up where someone from the outside publicly can write a nomination for an individual or an agency, which I think the theory is good, right? It gives more opportunity for input. The question that we have to decide as a council, and this is where, you know, Karen and I and Bill and Jeff kind of brainstormed it, how are we going to handle that as a council, right? Your individual counties put up their nomination for EMT of the year and paramedic of the year and nurse of excellence and all the rest of the nominations. How are we handling regionally if John Smith submits a nomination within your county? Is it then being considered regionally with equal weight from your county? Because you took it from your agencies, and that's something that we really need to identify. To the best of our knowledge, have we seen any submissions through that portal? So we haven't seen any yet, but I imagine, especially at Vital Signs, they're gonna start advertising it and pushing this out. Whether it gets traction or not, I have no idea. But we, as we were discussing it, we needed the council's guidance on what are we going to do and what weight is it going to bear if an outside nomination comes in for Putnam County. Because Putnam County took their nominations from their agencies. I'll open the floor. Not everybody at once.
Well, is there a section in there that gives them the opportunity to explain why they're nominated?
Yes.
Does that,
The legitimacy of the nomination is, to the best of my knowledge, going to follow the same format that your agencies are putting a nomination in. But historically, the way it's worked is XYZ ambulance submits a nomination to Dutchess County. Dutchess County then decides who is our award winner for there and submits their award winners to the region. Once the region picks their award winners, then we send it up to the state. The question becomes, what weight is somebody from the outside going to weigh?
Dave, does that come back
And
down to the county though? Like if it gets submitted online, I imagine they have to select what county.
It's coming to the
then go
region.
To the county.
Right, they put it in the region that it's for,
Right.
and then it comes to us.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that says Hudson Valley will get sent to us.
I think what Dave's trying to say is if it's being, let's say, nominated from Rockland County,
Right.
would Rockland County be able to vet that and
Right.
give it weight or act, saying, oh yeah, we didn't consider that, but that individual
I
maybe
don't
was.
think it goes
maybe was
to the
One of the
county.
difficulties that we're strategizing on, and we're really looking for more guidance, the deadline for those nominations are the same deadline as the county's deadline. So while your point is well taken, Glenn, right, your deadline for submission is May 15th or whatever the day is. It's also their deadline too.
Right.
So you could have already done all of your stuff, and that question becomes, now we're looking at deadlines, do we send it back to the county and say, okay, go vote again? Go consider it again? Because again, we want to stay in the spirit of what the state is trying to do, and they're trying to make it more inclusive so that people from the outside can nominate. So, there was a hand in the back, and I apologize for not knowing your name.
Megan.
Megan, how are you? Please.
So I don't think we should negate the fact that we're allowing the outside population to nominate, especially the interior paramedic. It allows them to specifically outline a life-changing event within that person. As for timelines, that's a simple fix. We can just ask them to, kindly move their deadline back so that you have a chance to vote on them.
Ask who to move their deadline back.
The state, because the state sets the deadline.
Correct.
Yeah.
They've given them the same deadline as we give that we get for each one of the counties.
So I would respectfully ask.
So your recommendation would be that we advocate that the state move theirs up
Yeah, move
or
it
delay
up.
ours? I'm just trying to make sure I'm
No,
hearing you
you
correctly.
would ask so that you guys have the grace period of maybe being able to vote on the different nominees.
Okay, so I guess before we can do that, we have to take a half a step back, right? If a nomination comes before the regional council, is it prudent or is it recommended that we send it back to the county that that nomination came out of, so that that county can then weigh it in on theirs? I see a lot of hands now. Is there anybody that disagrees with that? Because I would agree that, you know, if somebody nominates coming out of Orange County, we should send it back to Orange County for their recommendation.
Well, each county is supposed to only recommend one person.
Correct. But you won't have 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 or how many ever get submitted through the portal back to us if the deadlines are the same. And I agree with you, changing the deadlines for the public may help with that, because we could send it back, but that's good. Nick, I think you were first.
Is there any pathway for someone to submit a whole bunch of individual ones and then have one selected from the county and then 5 or 6 individual ones competing at a higher level?
From the way I understand it, and again, Karen, help me out, you know, because we were trying to figure this out all together. What they're doing is trying to open it up for the public to be able to submit nominations. What we're trying to figure out is how do we weigh that? You know, if we send it to the nomination committee here for the awards, right, awards committee, does an individual's nomination hold the same weight as what came out of the county? Because you would technically be competing against
Yes,
theirs,
you'd be able to bombard.
right? They would be competing. So that's why we're bringing it out. Go ahead, David.
Can we just ask the state to, instead of having these nominations go to the region, have them go to the county?
I don't think so.
I can't
Because
ask.
part of the purpose of it was that there are counties that are not submitting
Right, I was
any
just gonna say
awards. And those are the ones that they're trying to get those counties or the people in those counties to get rewards. Not everybody does it the way that we do it. Some people, anybody can send them to the county or to the region, and then they just go through them and figure out from there. And to be honest with you, we have some counties that don't put a lot of awards in.
Remember when we used to do it, everything would come, and then we would just pick the winners. And I think like he said, you know, there's a lot of counties that don't submit not one award application. You know, like they just don't feel like any of their people up in their counties like deserve anything, which is total nonsense, first of all. And we always ask them, you know, can you guys submit? And yep. Still to this day, you know, we get nothing. You know, so I think it would be better if anybody could nominate anybody and then just send it there and, you know, not bypass the counties. But then, like you said, send it back to the county, let them pick out the
We got
winners.
several. You guys are gonna have to hang out.
Yeah,
So,
because
but if the county isn't gonna do anything with it, somebody's gonna have to do something with it.
Right, that's kind of where we're at. All right, let me get some other things. In the back. Oh, there you are. Nancy, how are you?
If the nomination bypasses the county and goes right to the Valley region, is there any process at all for vetting that they're legitimate?
We haven't done it yet, so not that I'm aware of. This is all brand new and just got announced the other day that it's
wouldn't that be
coming.
up to the awards committee to work on that? I mean, I don't know.
It would. It's a great question, and it's something we're gonna have to talk to. All right, so we did ladies first. Let's go with,
So my question is, I'm actually all for sending it back to the county that it originated from for the outside person. My question to that is, does that go against what the state is trying to do? Right, so the state right, again, we don't know.
Why we're having a conversation, guys.
So, but that's what I'm saying is maybe there's more information that we need to get from the state for us to make a better judgment call of what we're doing with it. And ask those questions to the state and say, hey, if we do this, is this going against what you were trying to do or what you want us to do? Because if we just decide here that we're going to send it back to the county and the state gets a hold of it and says, well, what are you guys doing? That's not what we wanted. We fail as not asking these questions before we make decisions.
Right.
The way I understood it, that it came from the state, or what their intention was, that there are people out there where the regions and the counties weren't submitting them. So they wanted to give them a path to make sure that they can recognize their people if something happened that they should be recognized for.
So based on that then, we're not supposed to send it back to the county, right? Because they're bypassing the county for a reason.
No, they're not bypassing it. There's nobody that was processing it at the county level, and so it was never
Right,
going.
but that's the reason why they're bypassing it. So if we
So-
send it back to the county and they say, fax or whatever, and don't do it, then the state comes back and says, why did you send it back when it's supposed to go directly to the region?
You wouldn't send, you'd send it back for their
All right,
input.
Let's just kind of stay in order, sir. I got 1,000 hands, so trying to come around. BJ, I think you had your hands up before? No? Peter, go ahead.
Can't you do a combination of all of them? If some of the counties are not presenting any awards, can't the region take anything that's being submitted by the state, hold on to them, but forward them to the county? Because doesn't it make the most sense that the county would vet the people that they know? Essentially, the better the letter writer you are, so somebody can turn around and make a submission, do a great job, but if the region doesn't know who it actually is, they have a harder time vetting it. The county's gonna have a better idea of who that provider is, or whatever it is that's up for the award, and be able to vet it. If the county doesn't send anything in, then the region can look at it and say, well, hey, this county didn't present, we have this extra.
Good, Glenn.
I was gonna say that you're not, all you're looking for is just information about the individual that got submitted to us.
Sure.
You wouldn't necessarily say that we have to get the input from the county, but we want to consider what the county has to say about this person.
All right, good. Tim?
I think I agree completely with the county aspect, but I think what we're missing is that the state has put the onus on the region, and if they're not gonna change the time standards, it's the region's incumbent obligation to consider those at face value in that moment. I don't think you can push it back to the county if the date is the same. So barring any further clarification from the state or any further modification, it's the region's responsibility to consider those.
I hear where you're coming from. So one of the things, hang on, let me just comment, Israel, and then I'll get you. One of the things that I fear, and this is just me personally speaking, is that if an individual feels, you know what, and somebody mentioned it before, I'm not going to go through my county council. They don't like me. I've been blacklisted. I'm going to go in and submit 27 applications in my name singularly, and then we erode the whole county's ability to be able to acknowledge their agencies inside the individual. So, Steve, I'll get you 1 second. Let me just get into it.
We can send it to the county for a 5-day review. They don't do anything. Just consider it.
All right, I like it. Now, 1 second, Nick. Let me just get Steve, and then I'll come right over to you.
The
Go
other
ahead.
consideration here is if the county is vetting, 10 applications for one award and submitting one name, now you're doing 1v1 instead of consideration of 6
Correct.
or 7 as a whole. So there's a weight
Correct.
on there. So
So it's an
give
it's
the
an
county the
interesting conundrum.
opportunity if they don't
Go ahead,
send
Nick.
Yeah, along with what you said, you'd have to ask the county to send up all of theirs, and then the region would look at everything that was submitted from the county that didn't win, as well as this one to be equally weighted.
And then do we take away the opinion of
The county,
the
and
county?
maybe this is the best one. we
Right,
got.
because the county
Yeah,
takes
that's
all
what
their
the state-
nominations, their committee picks the winner that they feel that should come up, and then their nominations come up.
But
So
the state's taking
just
that
make sure.
away.
Go ahead.
So if you get a nomination from for an EMT or a paramedic, and you look it up and he works for a company that works in multiple counties.
The problem is, we're gonna look up an individual, and they're gonna work for multiple agencies in
That's
multiple
right.
counties.
Yeah, right.
There's one for you, and there's one for you. CMS providers.
Dave, what if?
I love it. Go ahead, Dave.
We've got representatives from every county here.
Yes.
Vetted by the county, maybe they have a say on whoever's from their county, if there's additional items there. But I think it's good to go to the state and say, here's the challenges we seem to be facing with this. What's the spirit of this, and what kinds of solutions do you propose? Because we want to do the right thing by you. We also want to do the right thing by the county and the individual that's, for whatever reason, going around the county.
So we're in agreement, we will, and again, we're gonna knock on wood and assume that we're not gonna get any nominations from the outside, because I don't think anybody realizes the portal exists. I would have trouble finding it. But the problem that, so we're gonna write to the state and get a clarification on it, right? And we're not even sure who we're gonna be talking to right now, because who did that for years was Valerie, who effectively retired last week.
That was gonna be my question.
Teresa is, to the best of my
Valerie
knowledge,
said the son is her last thing.
Teresa Allen
It's
she's like, see ya. Right? But Teresa Allen, to the best of my knowledge, is picking up right where Valerie dropped off, and she's really been doing a phenomenal job of running things in the background with Valerie watching. So I think that she's gonna do a phenomenal job, but I think that that's really what we should probably do, is formulate a question and say, what's the spirit, and what are we doing with a nomination that comes in that competes against the county nomination? Are we all in agreement with that?
Yes.
Excellent. And that's why we're a council. I love it. All right, is there any new business? Mr. Cuomo? You can't resign.
No. Since Tim mentioned the movie earlier, The Honorable but Broken, I just wanted to mention that next week, Thursday the 23rd, we're going to have a screening in Putnam County at our Emergency Services Building, 112 Old Route 6 in Carmel at 7 p.m., Thursday the 23rd. If any of you haven't seen it and want to, I invite you to come. In fact, better yet, bring your favorite elected official with you. If you can, because I'm trying to get, I sent the word out, and I'm trying to get all of our county legislators there, all of our town supervisors. I already know the county executive's coming, and we have an auditorium that fits 140 people. So we can definitely take, a good number of people, and the more the better. So we actually have an RSVP process where you can scan a QR code. We put out a poster with a QR code, and I also have a direct link to the RSVP site. In fact, Karen, I sent that to you, didn't I?
Yeah, it's on the Facebook.
It's on the Facebook page, but maybe what we could do.
I was gonna say it's on board.
Why, nobody looks at boardable.
Yeah, but would there be any value in sending the link out by email to everybody?
To everybody who?
What time is it?
The council.
Sure, no problem.
What time is it?
She said with a smile.
7 o'clock.
I don't think so.
Actually, Karen, I can send you an email tomorrow with the posters and the link on it, and you can
Yeah,
just
but
forward
don't I
it.
have that?
What's that?
Don't I have
I
that?
think you actually do, yeah. So, but if you need something, if you need it, let me know and I'll send it to you. It'd be better than having everybody email me directly. They can just go to the web, go to the job form and RSVP, and then it'll go through the regular process. But I encourage you, if you haven't seen it, to come, because you'll basically sit there going, yes, we've been saying this for years. This is it really does check all the boxes, and that's why elected officials need to see it, and the general public needs to see it. And I actually put posters out in public places throughout the county, trying to see if I could get the public to come. I have no idea if they're going to have an interest, but it's out there.
Excellent.
Let's see.
Thank you, Bob.
That's it.
Appreciate it. And the only thing that I'm gonna close the door before I'll accept a motion for adjournment is a reminder that as the council president, I enjoy coming out to your county meetings. So I've already got invitations to go to Dutchess County's award ceremony and Ulster County's award ceremony. So if any of your counties, are having an award ceremony and you want to send an invite, as long as I'm not previously engaged in something, either myself or Mr. Parrish will be happy to, represent the region at one of your award ceremonies. So
Sunday at 4 o'clock is Rockland's.
We'll send you the ticket.
Should I just show up in the middle of Rockland County and go, I'm here?
Fire training center. Well, Grand Fondo will be running through there too, so.
Don't go too early, you'll be stuck in traffic.
Sunday at 4 p.m.
What?
Did you say Sunday at 4 p.m.?
Yes.
Sunday at 4 p.m. This Sunday.
Yeah. Rockland County Fire Training Center. 35 fire.
35.
Sunday, otherwise known as the
Mr. President, Putnam County's at 10 o'clock on Sunday at the Centennial Golf Club.
Hey, you opened this
Two at one time.
That's 11, Steve.
Oh, 11 o'clock.
Sunday at 11 o'clock, where?
Centennial Golf Course.
Huh?
Centennial Golf Course.
Yeah, I know, there was, somebody sent me an email. Anybody else want to give me a reason to be divorced?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, I'll take a second.
All those in favor?
For anybody who needs it this week, for EMS week, Fairview's doing conventional forcible entry training and through the lock. So if you are trying to get into a house and you want to actually learn how to use either the tools in the ambulance, or some really old person shows up with a Halligan bar and they can barely lift it up, we're going to teach everybody how to use it on our simulators.
Excellent.
8 o'clock to 8 o'clock.
Thank you. Anybody else? Motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, I got Robert Ridley on a motion, Joan seconding it. All those in favor? Aye. Have a great night. Thank you very much for coming out, guys.